Welcome. This is Talib Kareem Muhammad, and I am the CEO of Abe Legal and a very proud, although I don't like using the word pride because that is a sin, as you know, but I am a grateful member of the 1995 class of Howard University School of Law. And I am here with an exciting guest, Orlando Ashford II, a brand and content creator, a former basketball player, and someone who is taking the lead and helping us to make this homecoming for Howard something extremely special. And so we're going to be talking about exactly why this homecoming, the 101st homecoming of Howard University, is unique, and how we are working to solve one of the biggest crises facing not only the Howard University community, not only the Washington, D.C. community, but the entire nation. What is that issue? What is that crisis? Well, I won't tell you yet. Instead, I will wait for you to engage with our special guest. If you are first time viewer, then go ahead and subscribe. Hit the button down at the bottom and also like and share this content. And check out the link in the comments section about the summit that we're organizing, something that we're opening up, but this is really for very special people. These are for this conversation is for thought leaders, for executives, for people who are really deeply engaged with business, with government enterprise, and people who want to see a change. And so if you fall within any of those titles or characteristics, then I want you to go and accept the invitation, accept the mission to join us and answer the big question of what you would do with $100 million to end youth violence and make life affordable in the District of Columbia, and actually also help us to realize statehood here in DC as well. So without any further ado, let me go ahead and bring on Orlando Ashford II. Orlando,
what's going on?
To the Abe Legal Podcast. How are you doing, brother?
Doing great. How are you doing today?
Very good. Thank you so much. We are grateful to you for lending us some of your time. And you are a content and brand manager. Exactly what does that mean? Being a content and brand manager. Tell me a little bit about it.
I guess I would consider myself a marketer first, and so being able to tell stories and help people understand the value in their story. I work with executives and firms on their marketing and branding, so being able to help them not only illustrate but connect with their target audience and people who they want to help and sell to, and so helping them be able to tell their story authentically, have that convert through content systems.
Now, nice. And so when you are in this space, if you will, what exactly are some of the recommendations? And maybe we can just almost dive into the project that we're working on and kind of talk about the story and the evolution, how we met, and then how you came to basically become the director of content here, as an example, as a test case, if you will, on what you do for clients all the time. Why don't we get into that? Tell us a little bit about that story.
So we actually met after I had a presentation with the DC Chamber probably about 2 or 3 weeks ago now. And so after the conversation, we had just caught up, and I think a lot of being an entrepreneur, just I think being a good person is about networking, and I believe that networking is a human thing, and so everyone desires connection. And, for me to be able to give back to my community, I'm not really from DC. My family lives here, but to, be able to help my people is a cause that's really important to me. And so when he were talking about the project, I was like, yeah, sign me up. However I can help, whether that be in marketing, helping with the brands, helping with content, I'm happy to reach to my network and see how, we can pull this off. And so it's short timings as, the events at the end of the month, but I think things like this is why I love what I do. And so to be able to have an impact, first here at Howard, but then, looking to grow this nationally, internationally, I think the sky's the limit. So I'm really excited about this project.
And we're excited as well. So give us a little bit about you. You have this strange title on your, your name there, O2. What is that all about?
So
and give us, like, if I was going to be like, if this is an elevator pitch, let me ask you this. If this is an elevator pitch, and I was, you had, 2 minutes, if you will, to kind of give your entire life story. Give that to us.
I know I'm only 25, but my entire life story. So I moved around a lot, and so I am the second. My dad, we have the same name, but he's had a long career in corporate America, and so every 2 or 3 years or so, we'd move. And so one of my biggest transformational moments in my life, we used to live in Turkey, and I remember, we were doing some sightseeing. I remember seeing some kids outside, probably about my age at the time, so like 5 or 6, who were selling, Kleenex. And I remember, like, why am I, doing the touristy things and they're out there working? And so ever since then, wanting to be able to create environments, create spaces where people can, fully live their dreams and be able to not say do what they want, but be fulfilled in their lives. And so, ever since then, that kind of drove me into marketing. And so I finished my undergrad at Curry College in Boston, and then went straight into getting my master's from the University of Exeter out in the UK. So I was there for about 2 years and kind of started my corporate journey. But working in corporate, you're pushing someone else's agenda. And so for me not to have that flexibility didn't really sit right. And I knew that, with the tools and the network I had, I could, learn more, but I could do more of the things I wanted and get to the places I wanted to get to, maybe not quicker, but in my own way. And so I think a lot of my attitude and drive comes from playing sports. And so I played basketball in college, played in high school. And so having that discipline and backbone kind of to, first one in the gym, last one to leave, being very coachable, being able to work with other people, your teammates. You might not always get along, but at the end of the day, you have a goal you're trying to achieve. And so being able to communicate effectively, not only with your peers, but people above you, has really kind of shaped me into who I am today. And so, yeah.
Thanks. And let me ask you this question in terms of, how, you transition from, basketball to corporate America to brand management, and how you're bringing all those skills to bear on the success of this project. And what are the metrics that you can hope to achieve, that you will be able to show that this effort and investment of time and money has been successful to you?
As I said during our during the event, your brain is a compounding asset. And so, ever since, playing basketball, taking that, I've had hip surgery, so that kind of took me out of commission for a while. And so kind of during that time of, reflection and rebuilding, I joined a clothing brand. And so I helped them out with the marketing. It's called For the Culture, based out of Philadelphia. And so that really helped me kind of transition from being an athlete to being an entrepreneur and being a business person. And so to be able to have that, kind of transition, I was really grateful and really fortunate to have that, because I know a lot of student athletes, once they're done playing, then, there's a part of them that's missing. And so even for me, I went through, a couple seasons of, trying to figure out how to exactly, tell my story and own what, my past of being an athlete playing to, shift into more of a business mindset. But for me, for this project, how we can, as we said, declare this a win, is one, getting people to come to the event, share their insights, have a great discussion, but then having people say that they want to come back next year, and then having people that weren't here from the content that we're able to capture say, oh, I need to get involved with this. How can I get involved in the meantime? But then how do I, make sure I can be there for the next event that we'll hold next year? And so to be able to start a tradition, something that will outlast us, but then also be able to impact our community, that to me is a win. So.
And I mean, where are you going in terms of this particular event? Like, give us some of the things that to use this as an example of what you do for clients. What are some of the things that you are doing, and how you are leading to being able to, hit those metrics that you've set, and and how does that look like, this being kind of a test of what you would do normally for other clients?
Well, it's different in the fact that when I work with my executive clients, we're more working on how do we sell something in a sense of either we're selling ourselves, selling our skills, trying to sell a course, sell a book. But with this is more about, and I guess there's still the same element of community building. We're building community around an issue, around a topic. And so really understanding the people that we're going after, the people we're trying to target. So those leaders, people who are trying to better situations, not only for Black people, but for, people overall. And so how do we get all those people in the same room, motivated behind, this idea of how can we raise $100 billion to end youth violence? And so to be able to, talk with great minds like yourself and other people that we brought on to, really, craft this story and craft this narrative of, how are we going to use this money, and getting people involved and giving their own opinions, because $100 billion, that's a lot of money. More money than a lot of people will see in our lifetimes. And so to be able to kind of say the world is yours, it's your oyster, what can we do with this money to make an impact? I think it's enticing in itself. And so furthermore, actually implementing some of the things that we're doing, because although a lot of ideas might be a little too far-fetched, I think that having all these people in the room will be able to really nail down some real concrete ideas of how we can actually make a difference in our communities for the better.
So since you are asking people to attend the summit, exactly when is the summit, first of all? And what are some of the, panels and things such as that? Give us a little bit of format, if you will, and I'll put the information on the screen so people can see it as well.
The event is, if I'm not mistaken, the 23rd to the 25th of October. So like 3 weeks. Start off with, a little networking on that Thursday, but Friday is the real day of when we want people to come, share their insights, share their stories, and having those panels. So I think really practical ways that, and I think each one will have their own takeaways of how we can implement things into our community. So AI is a really big thing now. I just came back from the National Black MBA conference. They were talking about how, we're in the AI revolution right now. And so making sure, we're not sleeping through it. And when there's revolutions going on, our people tend to be affected the most and first. And so how do we get ahead of that? And so I think being able to teach people and get people up to speed on, AI, because it's changing every day. In terms of the tools that are being used, video generation is really big right now. And so how do we educate ourselves and kind of get ahead of the curve on, what AI is doing in our society? And then, looking at, law, legal things, entrepreneurship, law enforcement. And so really having a conversation around the whole ecosystem, and different things that we can better to improve our community. And then we have the gala as well on that Saturday.
Yeah, give us a little sense of what, as I understand, this thing kind of came inspired by what folks have done at Harvard. Yep. And how that network that put together that thing like particularly the Harvard event, how they laid the foundation for Obama's successful Senate race and then his presidential race.
Yeah.
So, how, can people plug in and, like say, for example, if you're an exec at a company or, a professional at a company and not really involved with youth violence or anything having to do with youth, how do you still, plug in and contribute?
Well, I mean, I think just being in the room, one, because there's going to be a lot of great minds there. And so I believe networking isn't necessarily a business thing. It's always a human thing. And so people create connection. And so to be in a room with other great minds, other peers, as we say, people who are equal to, not saying equal to you because we're all equal, but people who has similar experiences, similar stories, be able to connect with them. I think even on a personal level would be valuable. But then once we're all going to be there for the same reason of trying to end youth violence. And so we're all kids once. And even if we weren't personally affected by youth violence, I'm sure we could think about someone in our personal network who has. And so to be able to tell stories for people who aren't here with us or who aren't able to tell their story, I think is really powerful. And almost, giving a voice to the voiceless, as some would say. And so to be able to show up, even if you haven't been personally affected or don't have a personal connection with it, is still a very powerful thing. Because your presence there, you might, share something that might change someone else's perspective. You might meet someone that you might have a business deal with. And so I think this is more than just trying to raise money for our community, but it's really about making sure that we're connected within our community because we have so many great minds, so many assets, and we're stronger together than, being separated. And so to be able to come together as Black excellence and kind of set that standard, I feel like it's really important for us.
And, on that note, what might be the kind of format of the different conversations? I know you have different panels per kind of subject matter expertise. Can you speak a little bit to that?
Okay, so we're in the process right now of getting some really good panelists, both people in the local area, but then people from outside the area as well. And so I think we'll have a lot of different perspectives on how we can really combat youth violence, but then looking at these different topics and having these thought leaders, experts in these areas come and talk about things that are happening and how we can not only learn about some of these different things, but how can we actually implement and have an open forum for other people in the audience to ask questions and have a dialogue around not only youth violence, but some of these other topics that we'll be discussing on the panels. So it's really, as well as a networking, a fundraising, but informational. So we want people to walk away with this with some knowledge and leave transformed almost.
And it's Howard homecoming, so there's a lot going on, right? Why should people kind of come to this kind of gathering as opposed to like parties or and I know there's some older like folks who have kind of dinners and stuff like that, but what makes this kind of unique, if you will?
Well, I'm 25, so if I see any old folks at the parties, I might be at the wrong party. But in all seriousness, I think what we're doing on Friday is really important in terms of being able to educate yourself. And I know there's a lot of other things going on during that weekend. But I think with our timetable, our schedule, we've left opportunities for you to, enjoy Howard homecoming. This is my first time actually going to homecoming at Howard. And so I definitely want to have the opportunity to, network outside of, this room. But I think having, that Friday be, really that hard hitting learning day, but then Saturday you go to the game, catch up with your buddies and stuff after, but then, come together for that black tie gala and still have enough time to, hit a Parks and 14th after that. But I think, getting together in the room and being able to have these conversations doesn't happen often. And so, definitely need to come and support not only Howard, but, what we're doing with this project.
And that's interesting that you mentioned that, because we talked about, what this thing kind of came out of what they did at Harvard.
Yep.
But as I understand, we and organizers of this event have been deliberate to not just make this a Harvard-like thing where it's exclusive to Howard people, but really something that is open to all people. You can, again, see the thing that, as I talked about, like some of the people who, they brought together for the Harvard event, from the president of the Baltimore Ravens to professors at various law schools to elected officials to judges, even just and the students. So with that in mind, why do you think it would be important to folks to come together, and even to Caucasian people, interestingly enough? But similarly, why do you think our event also is such that it would attract these, kind of the caliber of people? And I'll share that. Sorry about these are some of the people we were talking about it.
I almost want to say it's like a domino effect. And so once you get, one high level person, other high level people will follow suit. And so I think we've done a really good job of being able to target and get people who are not only respected in their fields, but then, really care about the cause that we have. And then some of them also have ties to Howard. And so I think regardless of, if you went to Howard or not, or if you're from the area or not, I think Howard is still a respected institution. And so to be able to be a part of, that legacy, I think is very important, regardless of, where you're from, your race, whatever, to be able to say you're committed to something bigger than yourself. I feel like is very, very important. So regardless of where you're from, what you do, I think you'll gain something from this conversation, from this event, from the weekends. And, you never know. You might meet your wife. You might, meet your next business partner. I think, the world's really endless. And so, just, really just got to be in the room.
It's interesting you say that, because I can say for sure that I have definitely found events like this. I did meet, someone who I married at an event like this, actually, to be quite candid, at the Democratic convention for Obama's nomination in Denver, and kind of just walking around the place with me and my boy, and I saw this nice looking sister, who was, wearing a, Muslim headscarf, you know what I mean? And I was like, oh, okay, cool. I'm Talib, I'm a lawyer. And she was like, well, I'm a lawyer too. I was like, oh, wow. So, and that's how it started. You know what I mean? Oh, yeah. And so, the thing is, what you're saying is right. People don't realize that investing time, especially time for a conversation like, how do we end youth violence, and what would you do with $1 billion? That's a huge idea. People don't realize that good things can come out of that. Now, I know we're kind of going over the time we have, but can you give me in the last seconds as we wrap up? One, I don't think you didn't give me the answer to the question. What would you do if you had $1 billion? One, and then give us any closing comments as we wrap up.
What would I do? With 100 billion, I mean, for me, I've been very fortunate enough to travel. And so to be able to give other people the opportunities to live abroad and to, see the world, really. I think once you see the world, you really change your perspective of, life is bigger than, these four corners. And so, to have, people take trips, redo the school infrastructure. I think, I guess it's a lot of things, but, making sure that, everyone is able to live comfortably and, be motivated to, not say do their best, but I think if you're paid fairly, you just have a better sense of life. And so I really want people to be able to, dream bigger, and be able to have opportunities to actually action on those dreams. And so yeah, I mean, I'm really excited for this. This is something that definitely losing sleep over, but it's one of those things where I'm happy to do it, and it's hard to fall asleep when there's so much work to do, so much good work to do. And so I'm really excited, really happy to be a part of this project. I'm happy that you reached out to me and gave me this opportunity. And so I'm looking forward to bringing this to life and, declaring a W. So.
Absolutely. Well, we are both competitive people, and we both like to win. And so what I guess to end by inviting every last one of you who listens to this podcast to join us. Check out the website that we have, which is on the Abe Legal page, Abe Legal at Howard Homecoming Summit 2025, and loop in. Be a part of something bigger than yourself. I mean, people, you saw all kinds of folks going on the LinkedIn, Instagram, and other pages complaining about the recent, deployment of the National Guard. And people like to basically complain when something, kind of extreme in their view happens. But my question that I kind of posed to people who are like that was like, well, where was the outrage when, the people were getting carjacked and the stores were getting looted and, children were getting killed? There's a young man who it was, that we're part of an organization called STEM for Us, and we are encouraging young people to go into IT fields. And this brother was in IT, a program manager, and he was at a gathering and leaving the parking lot and saw a group of girls being literally beaten up by some men. And he, just went over to say, hey, what's going on? And by even nothing more than just saying, hey, what's going on? And he got shot and killed, man.
Oh, wow.
Think about the young intern working on Capitol Hill, I guess coming from home or coming from, some event or whatever, out of the metro, walking, going home, and a car filled with a couple boys, just lights up the street with 72 rounds of bullets. I mean, think about that, man. We talk about the National Guard as being extreme, but this is what was happening in the streets of DC. And it wasn't just one-offs, what I'm saying. This was happening, right, all the time, but where were the protests then? What I mean? Where was the outrage then? So I'm a little bit different from, some of the other people who want to basically pile on to the president. I'm like, this is our responsibility. Okay. These were our children who are out of control. You know what I mean? Who, again, our systems have failed because there's no, discipline in their homes, because generally there are no fathers in their homes, right? And then the schools are broken, so there's no discipline in the classrooms because the teachers, are, not able to really discipline the children, because either their parents will get upset and, you know what I mean, or, they'll get fired if they try to discipline. And then the court systems. There's no discipline in the court systems. The children can get, basically shoot somebody, kill somebody, and because they're young, and I get that we want to give, but they're back out in the street doing the same thing. You know what I mean?
Oh, yeah. I think it also comes down to what you said before, but having that parental supervision in the home. And so if, they're not earning enough to be at a home and be present in their lives, they got to work 2-3 jobs, then they're going to fall into, the wrong hands and then go down the wrong path. So I think about, really kind of rebuilding the family, making sure that the family is at, the forefront of what we're trying to do. And so if we're able to show the family and give, people more opportunity to spend time with their kids and, actually be in their lives, I think a lot of these things, I want to say that will correct themselves, because still a lot of work to do, especially in the legal system, with with prison reform. I don't know why.
Oh, yeah. No, definitely that. But, one thing you hit on is the affordability. In DC, you got to think about it. Let's just say a person in a retail business. Let's say you work at Whole Foods, for example. You work at Whole Foods, right? In some places, you make like $17. In DC, I think you make a little bit more, like $22, $23 per hour.
That's not doing nothing.
But
right.
Yeah, but that right there, that means take home pay. Let's just say if you make say 17, take home pay is around like $800 every 2 weeks.
Yeah,
that's a full time. You know what I mean? $900 at most, full time, right? So, and the average, if you got children, one or two children, you need to get a 2-bedroom, at least 2-bedroom place. If they're doubling up, right? Let's say 3-bedroom, you're thinking, you're looking at about $3,000 or $4,000 a month just for rent.
Yeah.
Not to mean your car expenses or your utility bills, clothing for the children. And so if that job that you have making, let's say, $1,800 to $2,000 a month take home pay, you got to have 3 of those.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
Exactly.
And then what happens to the children who get out of school at 3 o'clock? Where do they go? You know what I mean? And you're really just, you have to put your faith in the creator that he's going to make sure that your children get home safely, because you're not going to be able to be there, sadly.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? In order to be able to keep these children fed and housed, right?
100%.
So we got a problem here in DC, and we can't blame it on the
problem
House,
in the world, in the U.S.
Yeah, not just DC, but you're right. This is across the country. So there's no way that the crime numbers have gone down so dramatically because you haven't solved the underlying issues, right? 100%. So these are some of the things that we need. We need you all who are listening to this podcast to invest your thoughts. If you had $100 billion, and why we come up with $100 billion, because if you think about the mayor under 4-year terms, the District of Columbia's budget is $30 billion. So over 4 years, rather, that's $120 billion. So think about how could $120 billion be used. And then in general, also, we've been a part of this network of HBCU presidents that are calling for the White House to invest $1 billion in every university and college to create AI labs that can help solve youth violence and also create economic development in these communities. Oftentimes, HBCUs are some of the most distressed communities across the country. And so we're taking it and then tackling it from 2 angles. So we really are excited about this. Again, I think we're so excited that we went over our time. So we'll go ahead and cut it off right now. But Orlando, brother, I want you to know we're grateful to you for all of the wonderful contributions that you have made to the wonderful event that is coming up. Give us your last comments and we'll leave after that.
I'm really grateful for the opportunity. And so, I think we're stronger together than we are apart. I haven't been in DC long. I just moved back in December. But I love the city. And so to be able to get back to the city, and to our community and have a larger goal in mind of, really changing how, just changing the country really. And so, I'm really excited, really motivated. And let's get to work. This is where the fun begins. So let's do it.
All right. Well, great. Thank you so much. And everybody come and check out the Howard University Homecoming Summit 2025, Summit for leaders, Summit for executives, Summit for people who are just committed to wanting change and bringing about change in DC, but across the country as well. So thanks so much. And we look forward to seeing you on the 24th and 25th.
Let's do it.
All right. Ciao.
All right. Peace.